Goonhammer has partnered with Legalized Mischief to present you with Colin Ward's long-form painting videos. Like and subscribe, and follow Legalized Mischief and Goonhammer for more hobby tutorials.
Hey everyone, it's Colin with Legalized Mischief Productions. Thank you for joining me and welcome. And today I'm going to be showing you how I paint my kind of moonlight white shields for my Kruleboyz for Age of Sigmar. I love these shields. I think they are iconic. They're instantly recognizable. They have that old school flavor, and it's just a really nice kind of center point thematically for the army. So when I was thinking about the Kruleboyz, when I was thinking about this scheme with the pale flesh and everything, I really wanted the shields to stand out and be unique. And so I got this idea to do the white shields because I had this image of the Kruleboyz kind of rising from the swamp at night, and the moonlight kind of reflecting off the water, reflecting off the shields, kind of illuminating the shields as really the only thing that you'd be able to see, just from the light from the campfire or the moonlight. And I just thought it would be super spooky to see these kind of shields just really coming at your campsite through the gloom and through the half light. So that was the reasoning behind the scheme, and they turned out really, really, really well. I really like it for the army. I think it's great. I love it. So, which is good because I want to paint a ton of these guys. But so I'll go through the steps right now. Right now, we're just going to do a little airbrushing to get the initial kind of shading and highlights down, and then we'll move on to the kind of the weathering, the oils and enamels and stuff like that. So it's pretty straightforward. It's not as complicated as it sounds, I'll put it that way. So, but it does use some advanced techniques. So try and make this as straightforward and as painless as possible. So when I'm painting the Kruleboyz, and you'll see this in a future tutorial, when I'm painting the Kruleboyz, the shields are the first thing that I do, and then I liquid mask the shields and then airbrush the flesh. So order of operations, this will always be the first thing that I do on on the Gutrippas anyway. So the shield, the first thing we're going to do is do a base coat of Meridius blue from P3. This is a really nice kind of lightish blue turquoise, more blue than green. So I really like this color. Then game color, and the exact colors are not super, super important for this step. These are just the colors that I use. You can use, I don't know, this like Swooping Hawk turquoise, whatever that color is now. And then, a light, really light blue gray. This is game color wolf gray. I use this because it shoots great through the airbrush, and it's just a great color. So great, great, great coverage. Wolf gray from game color. And then Vallejo model color white, which is my preferred white paint to airbrush. It's the only white paint I use. And then Vallejo model color blue green for some underlights. So I'll show you what we do with that as well. So there's a little bit of back and forth. This is, I guess, kind of a 5-stage airbrushing adventure. But the first things first, we're going to put the Meridius blue base coat right over the black primer. I always test it out on my hand first, make sure that it's flowing okay. Oop, a little bit of water left in there, that's fine. There we go. Don't need to do it all in one go. And this kind of sets the tone. Sets the tone for the whole shield here. Well, hosed a bunch of paint back there, but that's okay. Thankfully it was on the back of the shield, but it'll dry. So we're gonna let that dry. And then in the cup, I'm just going to put a little bit of water here. A little bit of Wolf Gray. Yeah, and if you want to use, model air or game air or Citadel air or whatever, save yourself the trouble of mixing. That's good too. This is just my tried and true, so it doesn't take a whole lot of effort for me to get that ready to go. Again, I always test it on my hands to see that it's spraying kind of how I want to. Hit this with a little air just to dry out. A lot of moisture back there. So now this, I'm going to tilt the shield forward a little bit, and I'm going to come in from above and get a nice highlight on there. But leave kind of the bottom. If we flip it up like that, we can see in the shadows we have some of that Meridius blue, and still at the bottom of the shield there as well under the lip. So that was maybe a little bit heavy, but that's fine because later in this process we're coming back to reinforce those shadows. And we're going to come in with Vallejo Model Color White. For the highlight. First highlight.
Oh, easy.
There we go. And again, we're going to tilt this forward and come down pretty much from straight above onto the top, really like the top half of this. I kind of want that white to stop really kind of the eye line there. We're going to develop a lot of shadow and a lot of differentiation in these shields with the oils and enamels and everything. So we don't need to do it all, but you can see we have that bright white right at the top, and then it goes darker as we get towards the bottom of the shield. But we have lost a little bit of that definition in the face. So it's important to get some of that back. So I'm going to show you how I do that. Little model color blue-green. Nice and thin on this one. That's too thick. A little bit of water from the paint cup. That'll do. Let's go. Very thin. You can see spraying over that white. You can still see, that white showing through. Very, very thin. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt the shield the other way and spray the shield from underneath. Whoa. That came out all at once, but you can see how we're getting that definition back in the face there with that blue-green from below. And that's heavy. That is a little heavy-handed on the blue-green, but we are getting a nice definition. So this is a series of back and forth, and this is something that I talk about a lot when I talk about airbrushing or when I demonstrate airbrushing. this is something that I talk about a lot, and that is continuing to go back and forth to get those nice blends and just to get it to where you're happy with it. It takes the pressure off needing it to be perfect the first time you do it. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back with the white and knock down those shadows a little bit, kind of reestablish the highlights a little bit. It's an extra step, but it is always an option. Sometimes I don't need to do it. Sometimes that part goes great and I don't need to come back with the white at the end. Sometimes that part does not go well. And I do like where it just shot a bunch of blue-green like it just did here and overdid it on the shield. Now all you need to do is come back with this white and just and I'm spraying very shallow. I'm spraying like this across the shield here. Very, very, very shallow. So that's only hitting those topmost areas. And now you can see we toned down that blue-green, especially around the nose and the eyes. But we have some nice definition. We have a little bit of blue-green up here. And that's it. I'm going to leave that bit at the bottom there. Well, let's zoom in on this before I reset and get out the oils and everything. So make sure the cup's clean. And then I'm going to get a little gloss varnish. Just hit that with gloss varnish. What that does, it lowers the surface tension for the oil wash, and so it flows into the recesses, and it also makes it so that the oil wash doesn't tint the underlying acrylic as much as if we were to do it without varnish, which is another kind of lever you can pull. It's another tool you can use with or without varnish when you do the oil wash. So let me zoom in here so we can see that shading on the shield, and then I'll pause it and do a quick reset after this dries. So let's see. Whoop. Little overexposed there. We got to emphasize that between the gloss varnish and the white light. But you can see on the face darken that up. That's a little better. You can see up here we have some nice shading on the inside of the rim. There, under the eyes, under these bumps up here. This lower portion with the teeth and everything. From underneath, it looks blue. From the top, it looks white. But because of all the texture built into this shield, it looks really good. Looks well shaded. So super happy with that. And I'm going to pause. I'm going to reset. And when we come back, we're going to work with a little bit of an oil wash. So be back in. I'll let this varnish dry for maybe, 5 or 10 minutes. I'm a very impatient painter. So some people say 24 hours. I've never waited 24 hours on purpose for that to dry. But your mileage may vary. I'm going to leave it for probably literally 5 minutes and then come back and do a quick oil wash. So see you in a second. Okay, we're back. And I have taken the liberty of just base coating the rivets, I guess. They're not really rivets, but those parts on the shield with Vallejo metal colored burnt iron. That's all I'm going to do with them. They just kind of sit there. Then I have a pre-made oil wash of Payne's Gray. And Payne's Gray is a kind of desaturated blue color. The Payne's Gray, the Gamblin, is very blue. So you may have a little bit different look. I simply mixed a little white spirit with a little oil to make this oil wash. I keep them in these, either Mr. Hobby or Tamiya makes these jars because they seal. So otherwise the white spirit would evaporate. And this way I'm able to keep, you can see the seal there. This way I'm able to keep kind of pre-made oil washes on hand, so I don't have to make them every time. I'm going to link a video in the description for this tutorial about how to make and use an oil wash, but I'm not going to just kind of redo that in this video. But there'll be a link in the comments for just mixing the white spirit and the oil paint to make this wash. I have probably a half a dozen pre-mixed washes. It just makes it really efficient to get up and go. Here you can see the color of this Payne's Gray. Very desaturated blue. And so what we're going to do with that, and you can see how thin it is on the back of the glass here. You can see how thin and transparent that is. That's perfect. We don't need this to do anything other than pin wash this shield. And so we can be a little generous, because that gloss varnish is all just gonna wipe right off after it dries. But it's gonna stay in the recesses. And this is why we use oil wash versus an acrylic wash that would influence the actual color of the shield, especially doing a white shield. Instead of doing that, we use an oil wash so that the shield maintains its shading and highlighting, but we get in those crevices. Like, you can already see how much better everything on that shield is defined. And that's the whole point of the oil wash. Now, how long this takes to dry is going to depend entirely on the environment that you're painting in. Right now it's summer in Boise, Idaho, and so it is warm. Not a lot of moisture in the air, so this is going to dry in just a few minutes. I'm going to let this dry. Typically when I'm batch painting, the first one will be dry by the time I'm done with the last one, or maybe 5 or 10 minutes. This will dry out. So I'm going to let this dry, and then when we come back, I'll show you how I remove the oil wash from the upper surfaces and leave the pin wash in place. Okay, and as you can see, this is dry, and it's toned down that white a ton, but we're going to bring it back. Now what I'm going to do is get a little bit of this white spirit into the cap here and use my expert oil wash removal tool, Q-tip, get it a little damp, and then gently, and I emphasize that because you can rub too hard and rub this down to the paint if you're not careful. I mean, it's not easy to do, but you do not need to apply a lot of pressure to remove the oil. So the white spirit will reactivate the oil wash and pull, like you can see, it's pulling that oil wash off the model, but it's leaving it around the rivets. It's leaving it in the mouth, around the tusks in particular, and you can see how much better defined everything is, but this is still nice and white here at the top end. And then same thing on the back here, just a real quick pass, because this is all going to be hidden. I mean, I do this on the model, so that's all going to be hidden by the model, but that's really it. It's that easy. That's another reason to use oil washes. It's super simple. And very, very effective. Looks good. Now to the really fun part, where we do a little bit of enamel work to get that kind of swamp effect and a little blood splatter, because who doesn't like a little blood splatter on their spooky shields? So again, we're gonna wait for that to dry. You can hit it with a hair dryer if you are in a hurry, but let that dry. And when we come back, I'm gonna matte varnish it, and then when we come back, I'll get in with the enamels. So we'll be back in just a minute. All right, and we're back, and as you can see, we've matte varnished it. Shield is looking excellent. Now you could just leave it here and have a really nice looking shield for your army. I mean, I'd be super happy with that. If you're not going a kind of grungy weathered route, you could definitely stop here. But for me, I really wanted to tie the models in with their environment and just give them kind of a greasy look. So I'll be using Slimy Grime Dark and a little Slimy Grime Light. You can get these from MIG Ammo. They are enamel paints. So I'm going to use a little bit of the White Spirit again. Too thin. I'm just using a tiny bit because I only need a teeny tiny bit for the shield. So, and this just gives a nice bit of color to the shield and gives it a little bit of that kind of swampy look. Now, the reason I'm using enamels is they're heavily saturated. As you can see here on the palette, I'm using a metal palette so it cleans off really easily. You can see how saturated they are. Very thick with color. And they thin. You could thin these forever. Very easy to manipulate. They don't remove like oil washes do, but they are very transparent when you apply them with the wash there. They kind of sit in the recesses really nicely. As you can see, now we're starting to get creepy. Right. Use some of this darker or a slimy grime. Get all in the teeth there. And now I don't want that to creep up too far on the shield. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to get some of this just pure white spirit at the top here. And kind of thin this out on the model. Working down. And try to neutralize some of that. Some of that green from on the face. You can use a Q-tip. It'll move a little bit, but in general. And here's where we could get the hairdryer out. All right, and here we start to see the effect of that all grimed up. That kind of deep blue at the bottom is turning more of like that swampy green color. I can come back here. I can grab a little bit more of that slimy grime all on the bottom there. Really get it nice and dirty. And once this is set, it's very hard to manipulate. So you want to make sure that you have kind of all your ducks in a row before you settle on the enamels, because once you settle on those, you're pretty much stuck there. But this is looking nice and grimy. I'm really happy with how much that had an effect on the bottom of the shield. Let's zoom in a little bit. Not zoom, but so you can see it adds a little texture, it adds a little grime, little uncertainty as far as it's not an even coat. And of course that'll dry out, but so far so good. And now the last little piece is going to be a little bit of blood splatter. So I'm going to show you how I do blood splatter. And I'm going to reset. We'll be back in just a second. Okay, now that the enamels have settled and this is kind of greasy and grimy with the swamp muck, one of my favorite things to do is to do a little blood splatter. It's just fun. It's just fun to do. So I'm going to get a little salsa cup here. Tamiya Clear Red. Now, if you were to just use Tamiya Clear Red, it would not look convincing. And if you've ever been around any quantity of dried blood, you'll know that it kind of turns black as it dries. This is really, really dark, kind of blackish, reddish color. It's very specific look, and this looks sort of like fresh blood, but it's still too bright. It's just too bright of a red. So what I do is I take a black ink. This is Ink Tense Black from Scale 75, and I'll take a little bit of that black ink and mix it in to the clear red. Now we're talking. Now we get that kind of drying look. Now, by putting this brush into the clear red, I've destroyed this brush. But this is an old trash brush. I keep brushes like this around just for this purpose. It's an old medium layer brush that is way past its expiration date. So now what I'm going to do is use it for mixing in terrain and for stuff like this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let that sit for a minute, and mixing the acrylic in there kind of makes it dry a little faster, and it has this kind of stringy effect with the ink, which is also what we want. If you want to see a little bit more extensive blood splatter, there's another tutorial that I'll link in the description on doing blood splatter on a big demon model that was really cool. Now what I'm going to use is my airbrush, but just the air. That's all I need. I just need the air. Crank up the pressure just a little bit. And as you can hear, it's just shooting air. This looks like it has a nice film going. You see it moving a little less. We can touch it. It's a little... You can see how it's kind of coming up. And it's not really moving. That's pretty close to where we want it to be. Now I'm going to go off to the side here, drop this down, because this is going to be on the... What we're going to do is we're going to lean it up against this palette, like so. Actually, there we go. But I'm going to do this off to the side first. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the end of this brush with my airbrush, and nothing happened because it is dry now. I should have some isopropyl, but it's across the room, so it's just going to have to wait. So before it dries, there, you can see different chunks. This is directional spray, depending on if I want to spray really shallow and really close to the model. Oops, that was bad. That's what we don't want. That was a sustained application of air versus that. Now there's the stringiness. Okay, this is where I want it to be. And you can see in the cup here, I'm like scraping it up like so. And you can see it's drying. It's a little goopy. It's not flowing really. And then when we hit it with the air, we get that stringiness. That's perfect. That is exactly where I want it to be. So before I lose it, I need to apply it to the shield. And it is super easy to go overboard on this. So I'm just going to do it once, maybe twice, to get a little splatter on the shield. There's just a little bit, almost imperceptible on the top there. Go over to the other side maybe. There we go.
God, a little bit more.
That's just kind of on its own there. Okay. Got a little bit. The fact that it hit the eye is not great. So it's just really focused on the eye, which is not ideal. So I need to balance that out. Otherwise it looks a little contrived. So dry off the brush, come over here, pick up some more of that almost dried mix. I just want a little on that area, but there we go. That area above the eye, perfect. Throw that brush in the trash. Throw this in the trash because that's going to dry. It's going to be useless, but you can get a pack, you can get a roll of two or 300 of those for pennies on Amazon. Salsa cups. And let's zoom in again here, or not zoom in, focus in. Because this shield is done. So in that blood splatter will literally be the last thing I do on the model because you don't varnish it. The Tamiya Clear Red is gloss. So it has a gloss finish. So we don't need to varnish it. It's going to have that kind of shininess. And there's the shield. Done and done. I think it looks really good. I think it fits right in with my existing army. And oops. One of the things that's great about this technique is that it's rough enough with the enamels and everything. So here's an existing shield. So I went a little bit harder on the enamels than I did on this guy, but I have other ones that are darker. But the white of the shield, very, very, very similar. Blood splatter, very similar. Obviously a lot more enamel on this shield, but you're going to have that variation across the army. I think it looks great. Super happy with it. This will not look out of place is what I'm saying. I could have grabbed a guy with a little a little darker shield, but totally fine. It's one of the things that I like about using enamels and oils is you get that variation, which makes it look more natural and more convincing. Your eye is expecting to see that differentiation in all these different shields. The shields are not all going to weather the same. They're all going to weather the different pace. And there you have it. Kruleboyz Gutrippa shield for Age of Sigmar in all its mucky and bloody glory. It's just super fun. Just really, really, really fun. Now I want to go paint some more Kruleboyz. So look out for the Kill Boss on Gnashtooth tutorial coming soon. But for now, hope you enjoyed the tutorial. And thank you for your support. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below so that everybody can see the answer. And we will be back with some more tutorials for you in short order. So take care, be well, and paint happy.